Hello ladies. Now I'm going to show you how to solve this question on process costing using weighted average method to calculate the equivalent units of production. This is a question on Kenton Industrial Corporation, which uses a weighted average method in its process costing system. During April, the Baker Assembly Department completed its processing of 18,000 units and transferred them to the next department. So 18,000 units were the completed units transferred. The cost of beginning inventory and the cost added during April amounted to $599,780. This was the this is a total of both cost of beginning inventory as well as the costs added during the year. The ending inventory in April consisted of 3,000 units, which were 90% complete with respect to materials and 40% complete with respect to labor and overhead. You have been given the cost per equivalent unit for materials, labor, and overhead. Now, what you are required to do is first, you will compute the equivalent units of materials, labor, and overhead in the ending inventory for the month. So let's see how you start doing this. The first step is computation of equivalent units and ending inventory, for which you always begin with writing how many units are there in the ending inventory, which are incomplete. So from the question, there are 3,000 units. As you can see here, it's written the ending inventory in April consists of 3,000. You will write 3,000 units each under materials, labor, and overhead. You will follow this with the writing the percent complete, which is mentioned here that it's 90% complete with respect to materials. So you will write 90% under materials and it is 40% complete with respect to labor and overhead. So 40% under labor and 40% under overhead. Now you will compute the equivalent units of production by multiplying 3000 with 0.9, which will give you 2400. Similarly, for labor, you will multiply 3000 with 0.4, which will give you 1800, and 3000 into 0.4 as well, which gives you 1800. So that is the answer to question 1, which is compute the equivalent units of production in the ending inventory for all three. Let's look at what's the second question. The second question says compute the cost of ending inventory and the cost of the units which are transferred to the next department, which means you have to calculate two things. One is the cost of ending inventory and the other is the cost of the completed units which have been transferred. You will begin with computing the cost of the ending inventory. So before you, to calculate the cost of ending inventory, you need two things. You need the equivalent units of production in the ending inventory and you need the cost per equivalent unit to get the cost of ending inventory. So when the question asked is compute the cost of ending inventory, which means they are asking for total cost. So to get the total cost, you need cost per equivalent unit and the equivalent units of production, which you have already computed under question 1. So you will bring this down and you will write equivalent units of production in ending work in process inventory 2400, 1800 and 1800. And then you will write down the cost per equivalent unit from the question, which is 12.5 for materials, 3.2 for labor and $6.40 for the overhead. Multiplying 2,400 with 12.5 will give you a total cost of work in process inventory for materials of $30,000. Similarly, for labor, you will get 5,760 when you multiply 1,800 with $3.2. And for overhead, you will get $11,520. Now, since you have to know the total cost of the ending work in process inventory, you have to have a total column wherein you will add all three costs under materials, labor, and overhead that you have got, which will give you a total cost of $47,280. Um, Next, you will have to calculate the cost of the units completed and transferred out. So what you will do is, just as you have followed in the previous step, which is for ending work in process inventory. So also you will follow the same for units for calculating the cost of completed units. First, you need how many units have been transferred to the next department, which is given in the question 3000. I'm sorry, which is given in the question as 18,000 units. Baker Assembly Department completed its processing of 18,000 units and transferred it to the next department. So you will write 18,000 under material, labor, and overhead. Cost per equivalent unit doesn't change. You will take down the same cost as given in the question 12.5, 3.2, and 6.4. Multiplying 18,000 with 12.5 will give you $312,500 for materials, $80,000 for labor, and for overheads it will be $160,000. Adding all three costs, you will get a total cost for completed units of $552, 500. Sorry, 552, $500. Now, the last question is something which you have not done before, and you'll be doing it for the first time in this question. You have to prepare a cost reconciliation for April. Now, let's take a look at how the cost reconciliation is done. For a cost reconciliation, you first have to bring down what is the total cost given in the question. If you see the question, they would have given you that the cost of beginning inventory and the cost added during April amounted to 599,780. First, for a cost reconciliation, you will bring down this total cost which is given. So you will write total cost to be accounted for is 599,780. Now you have to do the reconciliation. To do the reconciliation, you will write down cost accounted for as follows. Wherein you will first bring down the cost of ending work in process which you have calculated in under answer to step 1, which is $47,280 for the ending work in process inventory. So you will write down the cost of ending work in process inventory $47,280, and then you will write down the cost of the completed unit transferred out, which you have done here in the second step, and then you will add both $47,280 and $552,500, and the total cost to be accounted for will be $599,780, which is equal to the cost given provided to you. That is how a cost reconciliation is done. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. But based on the method in which this question has been solved for you, you will now solve the exercise 413 given to you in the worksheet. And yes, so start doing. And thank you.